Dustin Baker, Vikes Now, the Monday edition. I hope you all had an enjoyable weekend. We are back for a weekday slate of topics. I have guests on the way, not today. This week I have Sean Borman from Vikings territory, Wesley Johnson from Vikings territory, Nick Olson on the way as well on Thursday, and then I reached out to Ben Lieber, and he'll be here a week from today, and I'll be asking them questions. It'll be less of me during those shows and more and all of them. I'm going to ask them questions that I know you guys want to hear the answer to. But today, you're stuck with just me, and we are talking about why the Minnesota Vikings should get on the phone with the Chiefs. It's a novel idea. It pertains to the NFL draft. Surprise, surprise, because it's April and it's draft month. So I'm going to hop right into this. The first thing is, you probably, if you're a routine listener, heard me talk about last week, was that the Patrick Peterson reacquisition, his one-year extension with the Vikings, gave them some wiggle room in the draft in terms of how to fortify and fill out the depth chart. No longer are the Vikings forced into a corner and have to draft a cornerback automatic with the first pick. They don't have to panic anymore. For a while there, we're looking at the depth chart, and it was Dantzler and some breadcrumbs. Well, those breadcrumbs now are Chandon Sullivan and Patrick Peterson, who are a lot more proficient than proverbial breadcrumbs. So to set all this up, the maneuverability that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah had in the draft got more expansive when Patrick Peterson signed back on the dotted line. They can reasonably explore the best player available. Now, you've heard multiple times from me, by the way of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, talk about his emphasis on value. Every time he speaks, he talks about it. He uses that word, V-A-L-U-E. He talks about the value, especially in free agency. He said, if the price is right, then we will strike. And he did that a couple times with Zadarius Smith and Chandon Sullivan, among others, Harrison Phillips, Jordan Hicks. And I want to reiterate the value part of the draft as well, because the Vikings are in a spot, because they went 8-9 last year. They have a number 12 pick, which is kind of sought after. It's right outside the top 10, and teams that do indeed need to fill roster holes might peg the Vikings as a trade partner. So it's a very Spielman thing to do, to trade back in the first round of a draft, but don't rule it out this time because of the way that Adofo-Mensah keeps preaching value. And he does that in the sense that he wants to get the best players at the most reasonable contracts. He doesn't care about the big name. And when I say that, I'm talking about, let's for like Odell Beckham, he's a free agent. It would be very, very cool for the Vikings to sign Odell Beckham because he's going to sell jerseys. You get to say all summer, oh, we got Odell. You have that big name recognition. I don't know that Kwesi cares about that. So in terms of value, I think there is a tunnel to the Vikings trading out of the 12th pick, and that is the partner over here, these Chiefs. I think they are a reasonable trade partner because they have the 29th and the 30th pick. The 29th pick came from the Miami Dolphins by the way of the San Francisco 49ers. I believe it was the Trey Lance transaction. And the Vikings could trade the 12th pick to Kansas City reasonably and get the 29th and 30th picks back in return. And I will get into why shortly for the Kansas City part. But here's the deal. The Vikings right now, for long-term planning, this year should be fine. But for down the road, you can use this draft to set up two prominent positions. And you're going to know what they are before I even say them. They are indeed cornerback, and then they are the edge rusher, both defensive pieces. Those are, and they especially were roster needs about 3 weeks ago. They've been filled. Patrick Peterson, Zadarius Smith, Chandon Sullivan, and Danielle Hunter on the edge. We thought he might be traded for a little bit there. But right now, short-term planning, 2022, they should have a starting lineup worth of cornerbacks and edge rushers. The NFL draft is to be used to get better than the starting lineup and to set the team up and men up in a good spot to be prepared for 2023 and beyond. So right now, for that long-term prognosis and that planning, they need a corner and an edge rusher. In theory, if they traded that 12th pick to Kansas City and bada bing, they got the 29th and 30th pick, You could use those picks to set up your franchise for the years down the road. And it doesn't have to be a cornerback or edge rusher, but this is just my spitballed theory that those are the roster needs. Those can be filled late in the first round. And it would be 2 for the price of 1 in that sense, because you're giving up a first rounder and you're getting 2 first rounders. And here's why the Chiefs make sense more so than other teams. A, because they have the 2 sexy first round picks that most teams will covet. But they need a wide receiver. They've got, what do they have right now? They have Juju Smith-Schuster, pretty darn good. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, decent. When they signed him, it was funny when they signed him in the wake of the Tyreek Hill trade, because they're like, yeah, we got MVS. And it's like, yeah, he's really going to fill those shoes well, because as a Viking fan, you know MVS isn't too spooky. Good, but he's not going to, give you any fear. So Juju, MVS, McCole Hardman, who was supposed to be Tyreek Hill's replacement when Hill had the legal shenanigans 3 years ago in the 2019 NFL draft, right before that hit. McCole is average, at least for now. And then they've got the drunken ghost of Josh Gordon still on the depth chart. I say that because I am a recovered alcoholic myself, so I can get away with calling somebody a drunken ghost, in my opinion. And Josh Gordon might be fine coming up in 2022. I don't know, but it seems like every year he has his little reclamation signing where it's going to be different this time, and then it's not. He gets suspended. And for a recovered alcoholic like myself, you're giving dudes in recovery a bad name, homie. So it usually gets on my nerves. That's why I'm being a little tough on Gordon, but in all seriousness, he could just be fabulous next year. We shall see. Regardless, they need a player who can take the top off the defense or just speed through the damn thing like Tyreek Hill used to do. And at the number 12 spot, for which the Vikings currently have, the Chiefs could theoretically go get Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave. I'm not sure how you say his name out loud. Jamison Williams, Drake London, all of these wide receivers, at least 1 or 2 of them should be there at number 12. And if the Chiefs want to not miss a step by trading Tyreek, sans that fat-ass contract that he got, then they could try to do the Jeffersonian thing where you draft a guy in the first round as an instant replacement, just like the Vikings did for Diggs. Now, that's only, it seemed like 1 out of 20 shot he's going to be as good as Jefferson, but you have to try if you're the Chiefs, especially when you have somebody as Herculean in talent as Patrick Mahomes. So what this little idea does, this Vikings should be on the phone with the Chiefs, is it marries both worlds. It's mutually beneficial. The Vikings have a vested interest in getting better in defense, and particularly the edge rushing spot and the cornerback spot. The Chiefs don't have their best playmaker anymore. He was traded to the Dolphins. Like, dust kicked up on a random, was it Tuesday? And that dude was traded 45 minutes later. So they need to replace him. Unless they're content with the Juju, MVS, Mecole, and Drunken Ghost foursome, they're going to want to get a dude that's has the potential to be somewhat as dynamic as Tyreek Hill. And this is a way to justify those means. You get the Vikings what they want with 2 sexy first-round picks, and then the Chiefs can go get their wide receiver, whichever one in this class they think is going to best replace Tyreek. And preaching on the Kwesi mindset, this is 2 first-rounders for the price of 1. And that gives you, if you're the Vikings, 2 first-rounders on 5-year deals. Remember how the Vikings slipped back into the 2014 NFL draft to get Bridgewater? Well, that wasn't because they wanted to have first round attached to his name for his reputation for the rest of his life. It's because they wanted the 5th-year option, that wiggle room to figure out, hey, if this guy is any good or he isn't any good, we can figure out by year 5 instead of year 4 how much money we want to commit to him. Ultimately, depending on how you look at it, that 5th year was needed because the poor guy got hurt and you couldn't really adjudicate him until it was getting closer to that 5th year. So I believe that with this plan or this theory, I haven't seen anybody say that this is credible. This is just what I am given to you as my hypothesis. Yeah, you could get 2 first-rounders, the value-driven Kwesi Adofo-Mensah with 5-year rookie contracts for the price of 1, because the only thing you're trading, so to speak, is 17th rounds or 17th picks worth of draft stock. which is ample. But if you trust your drafting acumen and your scouts, then Adolfo-Mensah can pull the trigger and have 2 first-rounders and not even have to give up second-rounder. You still got all of your draft class and capital from this go-around. You just be trading, kind of like they did with Darrisaw last year, trading spots and extra picks. And in this case, it's an extra first-rounder. And the thing that makes this work, I want you to listen closely. This isn't Dustin getting on YouTube and throwing out crazy stuff so that people listen to it and run with it. This isn't crazy clickbait stuff. This is realistic in the sense that the Vikings own something that the Chiefs should want. That is the number 12 pick, and that is the crack at a Tyreek Hill replacement. Of course, other teams have that. I don't know if they want to trade it away. With a value-based general manager, he might listen or answer the phone more quickly than a traditional general manager. So I don't want you to waltz away from this little YouTube show and say, oh yeah, that one guy was crazy. He had an idea the Vikings were going to trade with the Chiefs. This really makes sense. If you pull out the draft calculator, I can't remember the names of them, but I looked at them when I was putting together this theory. This isn't, nobody's getting fleeced. And this would be a fair, equitable trade for the Chiefs and for the Vikings. And I think both sides would listen because it really is advantageous for each side. If they wanted to trade otherwise, then they could do a traditional one where they gave up the 12th pick for maybe the Saints, whatever they're at, 18th, and then they also get a second rounder. That works too. But I believe trading with the Chiefs, picking up the phone to call Kansas City, is the only way you can get 2 firsts this year. I don't know if that's coveted. Maybe Adolfo-Mensah doesn't give a damn that he would have 2 firsts this year. But the strategy, if you want the Vikings to have 2 firsts in the 2022 NFL Draft, this is the way to do it. It's to pick up the cellular phone and call Kansas City Chiefs, who need a wide receiver. This would be the way to do it. And the ultimate cool part is you'd have 2 youngsters on 5-year deals. Hopefully both of them would pan out. But that's how you would get there, is that you would barter with an upper echelon organization. What's the general manager's name? Brett Veach. And he would talk to Kwesi, and we would swap assets. And that'd be the 12th pick for the 29th and the 30th pick. To recap on the upcoming stuff for the show, it'll be tomorrow, Sean Borman. We're going to ask him about the salary cap, about his draft prediction, his temperature on Cousins and O'Connell, the relationship, the prognosis. And then I think thereafter, because we're in draft month, I'm going to ask pretty much the same questions to multiple guys and gals because I want to pick their brain about the future of the organization. We're in a very unique spot for these Vikings where they fired the general manager and the coach in the same year, and that general manager was attached to the organization for 16 years prior. So it's a brave new world. When they could have rebuilt, alas, they did not. They're in it to win it again, and I want to get the takes of these respected gentlemen about, is this the right thing or not? And if so, what's coming up in the draft? So that's the Monday edition of Vikes Now. Hopefully like the new format. I monkeyed around with some of the OBS stuff. I think this looks cleaner, as the kids would say. That's all I got, and Skol, baby.